What is up, my petrol heads? Welcome back to Pistonfury. You saw the thumbnail and title of this video. Today I'm gonna make you a better driver. I'm gonna go through the physics of driving. I'm gonna explain a lot about tires, and I'm gonna show you why you are understeering, not getting the lap times you want. Welcome to Pistonfury. You probably noticed the new room. Yeah, I'm not going to be using green screen as much because I like this place, and every picture you see here was actually done by me. Yeah, it's not artificial intelligence. Skyline, there's the F12 Berlinetta with a supercharger on it. Yes, I put a supercharger on it. Corvette, Lamborghini STO, Koenigsegg Jesko, all these things. The Plymouth Barracuda. I use gouache paint if you wanted to know. So let's get right into it. Understeering, to know what understeer actually is and not just know the term and what it looks like, to know what's actually happening, I need to talk to you about tires. I need to explain everything about tires. Your front tires, when you turn the steering wheel, the tires do not turn completely. They're not driving by telepathy, okay? I mean, yes, the BMW M3 E30 is, but not every car is like that. Explaining understeer. Let me explain tires to you. You have a contact patch on your tire. When you turn the steering wheel, the wheel turns, the tire turns, but the contact patch doesn't. And the tire part, the meat surrounding the contact patch, and some of that tire meat that's bordering in the contact patch, but on the outside, that whole place around stretches and flexes because the contact patch doesn't turn with the steering wheel. Well, let me say it shouldn't. You'll see why just now. If you have a lot of grip, most of the flexing is going to be outside of the contact patch. If your tires are not that grippy, it's going to make the contact patch small, and there's going to be more twisting and flexing inside. There's going to be more compliance to steering input inside your contact patch. Let me show you why you don't want that. So, you've made your steering input. The wheel has turned. The contact patch has not. The tire is twisting and flexing and all because it's making two different motions. So as the wheel rotates, because the car is moving forward in your turning angle, your tire rotates into a new contact patch that is turned because you turn the steering wheel. It's like walking. Exactly like that. So understeer would be where your contact patch slips into the steering angle and you're just going to go straight on. Well, like I said earlier, the deformation of the tire, because of the turning and the not turning of the contact patch, that whole twisting thing, if that twisting happens too much inside of the contact patch, that contact patch is getting overwhelmed with inertia and doesn't have enough grip. That's understeer. And I'm sure you can catch on to what's happening. Tire flexing, tire deformation. That's what's happening when you are cornering, because the tire is flexing constantly. But here's the thing, your tire only has so much grip to use. It only has so much capacity, so much energy. Braking and acceleration also brings deformation. If you watch a dragster's rear tire when the thing's taking off the line, that's the easiest way to see tire deformation when it comes to accelerating. The tire literally twists and squashes. That's what's happening to any tire when you accelerate to a certain point. Now, when you're accelerating or braking or cornering, you are taking tire energy. You are deforming the tire. You are using up the grip. But the fact that your tire only has so much grip, there's a physical limit. This means to get 100% grip out of your tires for cornering, you can't also be slamming on the brakes. But here's the thing now, brakes move all the weight forward onto the front tires, giving them more grip with the weight. So how do I get the weight on without deforming the tires too much with braking? Because I need all that tire energy for cornering. Trail braking. Trail braking is one of the most underrated techniques ever. It's not even a, I don't even know if you can call it a technique. Like, it's just so part of driving. Everyone uses it. What happens is you put your foot on the brake, slamming. Don't worry about tire deformation. Use up all the energy of the tires for braking. Then when you come near to the corner at turn in, you lift off the brake gently as you turn in. In this way, the front springs won't be so quick to rebound If you lift off too aggressively, then it's going to rebound all the weight backwards and you're just going to have a mediocre contact patch. Not that big, not much weight, and not much grip. So that's why you need to lift off gently. And as you're lifting off the brake, here's the thing. You don't want to lift off gently and then start turning it. You start turning it as you're lifting off. Timing is obviously variable for different cars, different styles, combining trail braking with some other technique. There's a lot of complications, but you see, the gentle lift off of the brake is only relative to steering input. What does this mean? You can have a super aggressive braking lift off as long as it relates well to your steering. All the weight is on the front, turning is at the perfect timing, perfect levels, wheel speed ratio is adjusted perfectly for rotation, all of this stuff. And the other great thing about trail braking, if you do it right, you can actually use tire deformation from braking to help you turn, not just to put more weight on the front. I'm talking about rotation. You can make a turn. Brakes can turn your car. You see, if you're in this illusion, this mindset that only your steering wheel can turn your car, you need help. Every professional racer has learned to turn, not just with his steering wheel. So let me explain. Your car has a braking bias. What's a braking bias? When you brake, all your weight is transferred to the front. There's a lot of braking G-force because your car has inertia. So all the weight is going to fly to the front because you're deaccelerating. And when it's transferred to the front, it's transferred off the back. So because you don't want your brakes to lock up, you're going to want more braking force on the front tires than on the rear, because the rear is not going to have that much grip because it doesn't have much weight. That's why there's a braking bias, to provide a good balance according to the weight transfer. Now, when you're trail braking and turning into the corner, because of the braking bias, if you keep the brake on but at a lower level, not much braking force, but enough to brake the front wheels a little more than the rear wheels because of the braking bias, not give the rear wheels much braking torque at all. What you are doing is lifting the wheel speed ratio. That means the rear wheels are going faster than the front wheels because the front wheels are being slowed down more due to the braking bias. This immediately provokes oversteer. Why? Because by the wheel speed ratio, you are provoking a further front pivot of rotation during cornering. If you accelerate, lift off, or just keep it there, but you just turn with the steering wheel, don't do anything else. It's just your front wheels that are turning, like that. Your rear wheels are the pivot of rotation. They just do that, and it's like that. But you see, in a front engine car where all the weight is at the front, the engine itself, the center weight, if you drive it like that, just turning with the steering wheel, the engine is going to be a liability of weight torque. If you don't know what weight torque is, there's a pivot and there's a big weight. If the weight is right in the center, it's not a lot of weight torque because it's just spinning around itself. When weight is put further away from the pivot, when it rotates, the weight is amplified by the torque it has. The inertia is much more used. So if you're just turning an FR, front engine rear wheel drive, with the steering wheel and nothing else, your engine is going to be a plain liability. That's how you drive a Porsche, not a Dodge Viper. Stop doing that. Mountain pass drivers are not superheroes like they used to be in the past. Am I right? I mean, in the past it was just, wow. Now no one even takes their cars near their limits. They're using like 20% of their tires' energy. Oh, it's hilarious. Honestly, I apologize for straying off the point. So by braking bias tuning, 60% front bias or just 51%, that's how you tune it. Number one, get that perfect balance. Some cars even have left to right balancing, and how you want to drive in rotation. So sometimes you'll have a slightly unbalanced braking bias just so you can turn in better and rotate better. Here's a quote by me. Tire deformation caused by acceleration or braking is justified when it provokes perfect rotation. I'm gonna write that on a t-shirt. If you're wondering why this bookshelf is here, yeah, I also am. I do not read a single one of these books. I mean, look, I just dressed up the bookshelf. If I could move it out of here, but it's too much of a schlep. Okay, if you're American, you don't know what schlep is. Go do your research. So, like I said, if tire deformation caused by braking or acceleration provokes perfect rotation is justified. But what if it doesn't? Well, then you don't do it. Like in an FF, front engine rear wheel drive, if you didn't know what an FF is, you're rotating your car perfectly around the engine, all four wheels by the trail braking, even a little bit of drifting angle. If you open the throttle, you're going to speed up the front wheels. You're going to kill the high wheel speed ratio, drop it down because of the acceleration of the front wheels. You're going to have no more rotation. Your engine is going to be a liability of weight torque. To briefly give more detail about rotation, your engine is your center weight. Rotation around the engine is what every professional champion has done. It's the right way to drive the car. So obviously, because there's this rotation, you don't want to just lift up your wheel speed ratio to heaven just because it's apparently a front engine car. I mean, seriously, the wheel speed ratio has got to be at the perfect level to perfectly balance the car. So your driving needs to be razor sharp. I have a lot more videos about how to drive certain cars. I mean, one of the latest ones about Steve Alvarez Brown. He's an extremely good driver. In that video, I show how to drive a Porsche 911. I also did a video on Ferraris, NSXs, Dodge Vipers, S2000s, A86s. Brief examples of other cars and how they rotate. With which inputs? Ferrari. Oh, one of my favorite cars and least favorite at the same time. Yeah, for real. Ferrari took the same build style as those old 70s F1 cars. Golden age. The build, the car's got four wheels.
Are you kidding me?
Engine sits in the mid-rear position, then there's a differential, then there's a transaxle, nearly sticking out of the rear boot. While this can be good, it can also be a liability. You see, when you're taking a corner, if you're entering on hectic deceleration, trail braking or something, even if you have a little bit of understeer, the build of the car, with the engine being the pivot of rotation, the transaxle being outside of the wheelbase as the car is turning in, you can push against the engine at that angle and provoke harder turn in. So it can solve your understeer. It's a very good thing. But when you want to accelerate, this is where it's not really nice. Because when you want to accelerate, what happens is the rear axle becomes a seesaw of two counterweights, the engine and the transaxle. So when you accelerate, there's going to be excessive rearward weight transfer. Your front contact patch is going to lift off the ground. You're going to get understeer unless you do it properly. So enter corners extremely fast. Enter them too fast because the Ferrari sorts it out. On deceleration though, that's the key. It must be on deceleration. And then by the exit, you accelerate. You see, it's not like an NSX or a Formula 1 car or an AMG 1. Let me explain this layout to you. Lewis Hamilton, 8-year world champion. If you're a true F1 guy, you'll know what I mean when I say 8-year world champion. There's not a debate. He drives braking extremely late. And then he turns in with the desired level of understeer. I thought understeer is bad. Well, in this case it isn't. Because you see, when your tires are slipping, when they are drifting, skidding, when they are understeering like that, they create a level of blocking friction. Slows down the car, slows down the front wheels, and it's absorbing the tires. Because the tires are skidding, they're creating, it's like a brick wall. Not good, right? Well, what Lewis Hamilton does, he creates this desired level of understeer. Then he opens the throttle. And because there's no transaxle to make you go like that, because the gearbox is within the wheelbase, between the differential and the engine, so the rear wheels are pushing the gearbox instead of seesawing it. So when he accelerates over the understeering front wheels, it's acceleration pushing deceleration. This lifts the wheel speed ratio. And by the rear wheels pushing against the front wheels with acceleration, it's pushing grip onto them and taking inertia off due to the acceleration. And you can understeer the car and just guide it through the rest of the corner. That's acceleration helping rotation. But in a Ferrari, it's unbalanced, so you can't do that. So that's the example of some inputs helping rotation and some others. Ferraris dive amazing though. What other cars can dive as good as Ferraris? Oh, I know one. Same case with the Lexus LFA or an AMG GTR. They have the engine in the front mid position, in the front but behind the front axle. That's why it's front mid and not just front. Then they have a transaxle, but the transaxle is within the wheelbase. So acceleration can help rotation with understeer speed rotation like Hamilton and Alonso use, or it could be drifting. The fact is you're pushing the transaxle with the rear wheels. It's in line with the rotation trajectory, so it perfectly goes with the handling. And when you're rotating an LFA perfectly, the gearbox not only, like I said, obviously, it's in the rotation trajectory, it's in front of the rear wheel, so acceleration can push it. It also gives so much more rear grip with those weights in a good sensible place in the car. So it acts like a third wheel. Oh no, wait, that's not a good thing. Hey, in this case it is. An LFA, AMG, GTR, all these cars, they're amazing. They're absolutely incredible. You see, what's happening throughout rotation is the engine is not a liability of weight torque. It's the center weight that the whole car is rotating around. And constantly, there's something pushing the engine in the rotation trajectory. What this means is, when you're facing that way, there's something pushing the engine in that direction. But the minute you change angle slightly, then it's pushing it in that direction. It's constantly doing that, encouraging more rotation. In Lewis Hamilton's case, it's the rear wheels. In the Ferrari, it's the transaxle. And drifting is another great attribute of rotation you can add to your driving when you can. There's a reason I say when you can. Max Verstappen, Ayrton Senna, Michael Schumacher, all of these drivers like more grip in the front, and they use oversteer to rotate. Rotating a Mitsubishi Evo or a Honda Civic with the perfect drift angle to deploy perfect rotation, it makes the rear tires possess too much blocking friction due to the drift angle. So the tires are self-destructing. This is unbalanced. Another quote, an unbalanced car kills its tires during perfect rotation. An S2000 doesn't have as much blocking friction on its rear tires while it's drifting. A Lamborghini and a Porsche 718, they have the engine in the mid-rear position, but then they have the gearbox in front of it. The gearbox can't help with rotation. It's just in front. I mean, it's not much of a weight torque liability, but the fact is it is. It has weight torque. It can't help with rotation at all. It's just there for the front wheels to pull. It's extra weight. So now you know all the physics behind all of this. You know how tires work. And by a few brief examples, you know how some cars react to inputs, how weight transfer works, what weight torque is. So in your specific car with the specific tune, specific build, all of this stuff, and your specific style of driving from the first time you got into your car, you can figure out now why you are understeering, why you're not getting the lap times you need. So have fun, carry on driving. Yeah, that's a really important thing. Have fun. Here's the thing. If you're only there to beat your opponent, what happens when you beat him? Me personally, the way I race, I'm racing against my own potential. I race against the ghost. That ghost is my potential. You know what? Here's the thing. Even at the day that I reach my full potential, this is just my way of thinking. There's gonna be a ghost in front of me that's faster than me. That's who you race against. That's how you should drive. In that way, you will enjoy every bit of it. You'll always be addicted to speed. Back to the technical stuff about driving. It's better to know all the physics, all the stuff, all the details about driving and tires and weight and all, and then apply to your car the perfect way to rotate it. What is perfect rotation? Another quote from me. A well-balanced car does not have any weight disturbing rotation, but rather every single weight in the car is working in harmony, rotating around the engine. So if the only way you can rotate is by deceleration, you got to do that. So get into your car now and find a technique by seat time, not by some technique you found on YouTube. You must have that communication with your car, and you must see if the technique works with your car. Don't just apply any random technique. Although things like threshold braking, that's not even a technique, that's a driving lifestyle. I explain more of that in the video on braking. So that obviously applies to your driving. But that you'd also learn by seat time. That's why it's a principle. Wish you best of luck. Check in my piston heads.